Hello. On the right I have a new Surface Go, and on the left I have a 2017 Surface Pro. The one on the left has 8 gigs of RAM and the one on the right has 4 gigs of RAM. So the Surface Go is the bottom level one that you can possibly get, and the Surface Pro is pretty much a mid-range version. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to compare the performance of these two systems using ArtRage, of course, and both being set up in exactly the same way. I have set the canvas size to 4K, which is 3840 by 2160, and that is a typical size that I would use for my canvas. And the size of brush is 500% on both of them. I have set basically them both up in exactly the same way, and they are both set to high performance mode on the power settings as well, because that's quite an important setting to make sure they're consistent. That is on best performance. And also on the Surface Go, we also have it set to best performance. There we go. So let us see what happens. I think we will start with the Surface Pro first, because in theory, this one should run faster. This, of course, is a test using the latest version of the Surface Pen. Okay, here we go. Big, thick, everlasting oil paint. This is what it is. And this is showing no lag at all. That is slapping the paint on pretty heavily and pretty quickly. Not something I would typically do at that speed. Remember, this is maximum size of brush in ArtRage. And now this is mixing paint on top. In theory, it should be a bit slower because it's performing more calculations. I just can't notice any lag. It's fine, even when I do it really quickly. I mean, you probably would expect this because ArtRage is quite a lightweight program, especially with the oil brush. It's not stamping an image all the time. It's using its algorithms to work out how to apply the paint. And let us try a different colour on top, even more calculations. Just can't notice any lag at all. Nothing. And that's really pushing it as well. And this is something I wouldn't really necessarily do. My brush would be a lot smaller, and I would just dab a little bit more, I think. Okay, that's a baseline then, and of course that's going to be the ultimate virtually, with 8 gigs. And I've noticed generally with the processing, I'm not really getting anywhere near 8 gigs on these kind of things. In fact, I'm barely getting onto 4 gigs in processing. Therefore, let's now do some very similar things, but on here, the Surface Go. Again, we have the brush set to maximum value. I've set it to black, everlasting oil, and let's see what happens. Tentatively initially. Okay, there is a tiny bit of lag, as you may be able to pick up here, but that's only really when applying it. The speed of the line it gets there just about in the same way. There's just a bit of lag with it, but as I said before, it's not something I'm typically going to do very much. So there we go, there's a tiny bit of lag, but this is 4K, a 4K canvas. Okay, maybe not the biggest canvas in the world compared to some other canvases you might see. This for me is a typical size, and I won't be really doing too much on the size of 500% of a brush with everlasting oil. In theory, it's quite intense on top, but it handles it pretty well. Like I said, there's a bit of a lag, but it's doable, it's fine, because most of the time my brush is going to be smaller, and even if it's big, I'll typically be only painting at about this speed, and at this speed I don't notice anything. Absolutely nothing for that, for the everlasting oil. There we go. If you really wanted to hit it, okay, look, there we go. There's some lag for you. But that's just silly. That's just being silly now. But for typical painting, and maybe if I just turn the brush size down to 100%, for example, and see what we have. Let's change it to black. In fact, let's just really go nuts. I mean, you really, nobody's going to draw that speed anyway. If you see here, this would be maybe my top level speed of drawing to get those fast strokes. And it can handle all them fine. It's absolutely fine. Okay, that was just a quick comparison test between the Surface Pro 2017 and the new Surface Go, just to see what we got. And basically, it looks to me, and I will perform a few more tests, that the Surface Go, and this is the bottom level one, is perfectly adequate for what I want to do on it anyway, which is using the tool which is ArtRage. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.